Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to another odd vlog, and we've just seen episode 3 of the new season of Daredevil Born Again, and it ended in such a way where I have to ask the question, could it actually be, spoiler alert, the Punisher who kills White Tiger? Surely not. The episode is actually really good, and it's all based around the court hearing that's happening, the actual trial for the White Tiger, whose name is Hector. He's finally put on the stand to testify in his trial that he had killed a police officer at the beginning of the series, and the hope is that the witness is now going to come and take the stand who was the person he was trying to save from the police beating him up on the train station. So it's all a bit of a thing, but the way this episode plays out and the very ending of it, we see so many Punisher references throughout this episode, but the way that it finishes, it begs the question, does the Punisher actually end up killing the White Tiger? Let's get into it. First of all, I will say that the previous episodes that we'd had so much duality between Wilson Fisk and Matt Murdock, and their two kind of characters trying to be better, trying to perhaps not be themselves. Wilson Fisk is trying not to be Kingpin, and Matt Murdock is trying not to be Daredevil. And there's a lot of internal struggle, and there's a lot of playback between both of those characters and what they're doing throughout the episodes, in a very sort of dual storyline kind of way, with a lot of parallels between one and the other. And this episode starts off along a similar vein actually as well, because one thing that it shows is Wilson Fisk's fists on his desk, and you can see where he's been like punching people and beating people up, but his sort of like wounds on his hand seem to actually be healing, as opposed to the flip side of that when we see Matt Murdock doing the exact same thing, whereas his wounds on his fists seem to be getting worse. So it's almost as though Wilson Fisk is trying to obviously be a good guy, Matt Murdock is trying not to be a vigilante, and it's just these constant kind of chinks in the armor that are being shown for these two characters. So brilliant duality between the two, and I love the way that it's being done in terms of like a cinematic kind of way is really good. But quite early on in this episode, something that keeps playing out and that we keep on seeing are all of these little nods and references to the Punisher. We keep on seeing his logo everywhere. It's on walls, it's on posters, it's tattooed on multiple police officers as well. So there's a lot of symbology in play in this episode as well, and it's all kind of teasing that the Punisher is going to arrive at some point, until we get to the very end of the episode where, well, we'll get into that later, but it's sort of building and building. The Punisher is coming, surely. Hector's trial plays out, and basically they now are able to bring in to the trial the witness, the guy who he had actually tried to save from getting beaten up by these bent police officers. And it turns out that he's a confidential informant for the police, and they've basically gone to rough him up to get information out of him, and that's where Hector found them and tried to save him from these cops that were just beating him up. So he's got this witness, and obviously in the previous episode it was all about trying to keep the witness safe, and make sure that he could get to the trial, which he does after a fashion, and starts to sort of say who he is, but he won't tell the truth. He won't confess, he won't be honest about the fact that Hector had actually saved his life from these two cops that were beating him up. He's clearly afraid of the police, he's clearly corrupted in some way, and he's not testifying, he's not giving his story, he denies that he was ever there, and obviously it looks as though Hector's trial is going to completely fall apart. He's going to end up going to prison for murder. So Hector, his one defense is now completely crumbled. So what are they going to do? Well, Matt Murdock, unbeknownst to Hector, to the court, to the judge, he reveals to the entire courtroom that Hector is actually the vigilante known as White Tiger, and then basically portrays him as being this hero character who, testimony after testimony written in all of these statements, he's actually saving police officers and sort of protecting his community and saving people's lives. And then all of these sort of testimonies and witness statements start coming through of all of these people that White Tiger has actually saved, from burning cars or from being attacked, from being mugged, and written statements by police officers saying the exact same thing. White Tiger had actually helped him. He's not a cop killer, he's a hero. And that is the argument that Matt is trying to make in court to keep Hector out of prison. But you still don't know what way it's going to go. Ultimately, the prosecution are making the argument that it doesn't matter if he's a hero. At the end of the day, a cop died because of him. So there's a lot of to and fro, you're not really sure which way it's going to go. So the court trial takes up a lot of the episode, but it's actually quite good. There's some good suspense in there, and you don't really know what the outcome's going to be. Eventually though, and thank goodness, spoiler alert, the jury come back and say he's not guilty, so he's cleared of all of the charges. You can tell from the police officers that are in the room that they're already conspiring, they're already sort of planning to do something. You can't trust them, they look dodgy as hell. But effectively Hector is freed, but publicly he is now known as being White Tiger. His secret identity is revealed. So he is shown to be the vigilante known as the White Tiger, and there's no denying that anymore. So you think it's all good, you think it's all great. He's safe, he's fine. Matt Murdock goes off and starts having a date with his girlfriend kind of thing. And then it's all very nice. They're having a drink and celebrate and all this kind of stuff. They won the trial. And then cutscene to a little bit later on, and Hector is putting on his White Tiger suit, looks really cool. There's the music, a bit of a theme tune for him as well, and then he hits the streets. He hears somebody screaming, so goes off to help him, and it's all very cinematic in the way that he's a hero and he's going to go and save somebody. But as he's running towards whoever this person is who he's trying to save, somebody in a hood and a big jacket walks up behind him and shoots him straight in the back of the head. Hector's dead. And that's it. The White Tiger instantly going from being saved, for being revealed, his secret identity given away, to that saving him in the trial and being found not guilty. He then goes back on the streets to go and do his job, to be a vigilante, to save people, and he gets assassinated immediately. So clearly you think, well, it's obviously the cops then. They were looking at him at the end of that trial. You really couldn't argue that they looked like they weren't going to do something. So, and here it is, they've now just killed him. It's a bit of a revenge kill. Wilson Fisk, though, interestingly, reacts to the sort of breaking news of Hector being cleared in prison, and he's not happy at all. So you kind of suspect that maybe Fisk is behind it. He obviously really doesn't like vigilantes because he's been fighting against them for 3 seasons of Daredevil before that. He's obviously got a thing about them. And he gives an interview saying as how it's a breach of justice. It's clearly a mistrial. The jury got it wrong. He's obviously not a hero. He's and basically just going along this rhetoric, which is absolutely fine. And I think part of that also will get the police on his side. But interestingly, though, whoever's behind it, police you suspect to begin with, or someone working for Fisk, shoots White Tiger in the back of the head, and he's dead. So then as the camera kind of pulls away from the assassination scene, the shooter starts walking towards the camera and reveals that he's wearing body armor with the Punisher logo spray painted all over it. So the question is, did Frank Castle, did the Punisher actually kill White Tiger? I mean, really? I don't think for one moment that that's Frank Castle. There is just no way. Why would he go out of his way to shoot White Tiger in the back of the head? And the fact that we keep on seeing all of these police officers with Punisher logos tattooed all over them, and there's posters of the Punisher everywhere, for no moment did I ever think, actually, it's gonna be the Punisher. It just can't be. Frank Castle's got no interest in this storyline at all at the moment. I suspect he's now going to get brought into it as being like some kind of suspect for having killed him, or Matt might think that it's him or something. This is probably what's going to bring Frank Castle into the conversation and into the series. But there's no way that was actually him that killed White Tiger. There's just no way. There's no reason for it. There's no motive for it. And when we know we've seen so many police officers sort of blazingly wearing Punisher logos on them, be it with tattoos or clothing or whatever, you know that it surely is a cop that's done this. It has to be. There's no doubt in my mind that that's who it actually is one of the cops that was there at the trial. Whether or not that guy is being paid by Fisk though, or is on Fisk's books or whatever, clearly that is part of, I think, Kingpin coming out and is actually playing behind the scenes. I don't think it's the Punisher. I think it's a cop, but whether that cop is being paid by Wilson Fisk, who knows? But it certainly suggests that that might be the case. Either way, whether Fisk is behind it or not, and he could well be, but whether he is, I still think it's one of the cops that does it. It's not actually Frank Castle for sure. I'm absolutely certain about that. Though also the logo looks wrong on the vest as well. It doesn't look quite right for it to be the actual Punisher. So whether or not we've now got cops kind of being their own version of a vigilante or not, I don't know. But we certainly seem to have like this underground thing going on with the police where you can't actually trust them, and they're clearly corrupt, and they're clearly now going out dressing as the Punisher and inflicting their own kind of version of justice, even against people who are actually innocent. So it's clearly gone wrong somewhere in the system, but I suspect this all plays into Fisk's hands one way or another. So in answer to the question of who actually killed White Tiger, I think it's a cop, but I think we can be a little bit more specific. It's probably the one who Matt had beaten up in the apartment block when he was trying to save that witness. Because he also takes the stand at the beginning of this episode as well. He's definitely bent, there's no way about that. He's clearly being, you know, corrupted by someone somewhere to you know, rough up who was basically an informant, is how it all started, this storyline. So he's clearly not, you know, not a good guy, and I suspect he's the number one suspect when it comes to who actually killed him. I don't think it's Frank Castle. I think it's that cop. I don't know his name, but I think it's him. I think it's basically the two cops that were beating up the witness at the very beginning of the series. The one that doesn't die, the one that's left. That's got to be the guy. That's the one for me who's actually doing it, I think. So he's my number one suspect. Frank Castle would be way down at the bottom of the list. And the only other suspects are just some other cop, I think, at the moment, for me. So it's got to be that guy, I think, number one, because he's clearly dodgy and you can't trust him. He's very much portrayed as being a bad guy throughout this. And definitely, I think he's capable of doing that. We know that he is. So that's my suspect. But why the Punisher references, though? That's really weird. Why are they all pretending to like be him or be some kind of like subgroup within the police that's inspired by him? I don't know, and whether or not there is any connection to Frank Castle, I think might be a little bit weird, but we might see that in the next episode, and that's what I'm really hoping for now. It's time to bring in the Punisher, bring in Frank Castle. So that's what we want, that's what we're hoping for, and that's what I'm going to go and find out now by watching episode 4. So with that said, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Stay tuned, I'll see you guys real soon. The vlog is over.